When my parents stood in my living room and casually announced to my sister that they were moving into my lake house, it felt like the air was sucked out of the room. My $960,000 investment, the home I had worked years to afford, was suddenly being treated as if it were just an extension of their generosity toward her. My mom smiled at my sister like it was the most natural thing in the world, and my dad patted her hand, saying, "You'll love it here." My sister looked thrilled, as if she had just been given a grand gift. And all I could think was, how did we get here? When did my hard work become something they could give away without even asking me? That lake house was more than just property. It was a symbol of everything I had fought for. Every late night, every double shift, every rejection I pushed past to finally carve out stability for myself. I grew up in a house where love was often conditional, where my sister was the golden child, the one whose mistakes were brushed aside, while I was held to standards so high I could never reach them. I learned early that nothing I had was truly mine. If she wanted it, somehow, she got it. When I bought the lake house, it was the first time I felt like I owned something no one could take away. But as I stared at my parents making promises they had no right to make, I realized I had underestimated just how deep their entitlement ran. They told me my sister needed the space more than I did. They said her growing family deserved to enjoy the lake, to raise her kids in a beautiful home rather than being stuck in a cramped apartment. They painted me as selfish for not seeing it their way. I stood there, stunned, while my sister started imagining how she would decorate her new place. It wasn't just the words, it was the certainty in their voices, the way they dismissed my ownership as if it didn't matter. It was the same old story. My sacrifices erased, my boundaries ignored. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't the same person I used to be. I wasn't the child who bit my tongue and gave up what was mine. The days that followed were filled with mounting pressure. My parents called constantly, framing it as a matter of family loyalty. They said I was lucky enough to own 2 properties, so I should share. They reminded me of the times they had sacrificed for me, conveniently leaving out the years of emotional neglect. My sister chimed in too, telling me her kids deserved the lake house more than I did, that I didn't even spend enough time there to justify keeping it. It wasn't just manipulation. It was entitlement dressed up as moral obligation. And when I finally said no, when I told them clearly that my lake house was not up for grabs, the backlash was immediate. They called me cruel. They said I was tearing the family apart. They painted me as greedy, selfish, heartless. Relatives began to call, repeating the same narrative my parents spun. I was shocked at how quickly the story spread, twisted until I was the villain who had denied my sister a home for her children. It was like a coordinated attack, designed to break me down until I surrendered. The pressure was relentless, and yet the more they pushed, the more I felt the fire inside me harden into resolve. The tension reached its peak at a family gathering where everything erupted. Surrounded by cousins, uncles, aunts, and grandparents, my mom raised her glass and declared that family was about sacrifice, about putting others before yourself. She looked directly at me as she spoke, her smile tight and cold. My dad followed, praising my sister's resilience and hinting at the struggles she faced, framing her as the victim of my supposed greed. Whispers filled the room, all eyes turning toward me, waiting for me to cave, to admit defeat in front of everyone. But instead of crumbling, I stood. I told them the truth. I told them about the years I fought to earn what I had, about the nights I went without sleep, about the way I had clawed my way out of financial ruin when no one in that room lifted a finger to help me. I told them how my sister had been carried her entire life, how every mistake she made was covered up, while I was left to clean up my own without support. And then I looked at my parents and said, "This lake house is mine. I bought it, I maintain it, I pay for it. You don't get to decide it belongs to anyone else." The room was silent. The illusion of control they held for so long cracked in that moment. My parents were furious. My sister burst into tears, accusing me of destroying her dream. But I didn't back down. For the first time, I chose myself over their manipulations. The night ended in chaos, with people storming out, some siding with me, others with them. But deep down, I knew I had done the right thing. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was harsh. My parents gave me the cold shoulder. My sister painted me as a monster to anyone who would listen. and family gatherings became battlegrounds of awkward silences and whispered judgments. But I also noticed something else: respect. Quiet messages from relatives who said they admired my courage, friends who told me I had every right to set boundaries, even acquaintances who said they were inspired by my refusal to be bullied into submission. The lake house remained mine. Every time I sat by the water, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace. It wasn't just about holding on to property, it was about holding on to my dignity, my hard work, my right to decide what I had earned. My parents' entitlement no longer had the power to control me, and my sister's manipulation no longer dictated my choices. Looking back, I realized this was never just about a house. It was about years of being dismissed, overlooked, and used. It was about breaking free from a cycle where my worth was measured only by how much I could give up for others. It was about saying no when no one expected me to, and standing tall even when the backlash threatened to drown me. And maybe that's the lesson in all of this, that sometimes the cruelest thing isn't saying no. Sometimes the real cruelty is when people believe they're entitled to your life, your sacrifices, your hard work, simply because of who they are. And when you finally draw the line, when you finally take back what's yours, you don't just protect your property, you protect yourself. So the next time someone tries to shame you into giving up what you've earned, ask yourself this: are you truly being cruel, or are you finally being fair to yourself?